Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Playbook for Leaders and Entrepreneurs. We have an amazing guest joining us today. He is one of my close friends, and we met in college, I think 5 to 6 years ago. And
It's
ever
been
since,
longer.
from that, we have been best friends. And our conversation has always been about success, what books to read, self improvement, or sharing goals, or pulling each other up to get better. And he's got quite an impressive academic track record as well, completing CA, CFA exams, and at the same time, he has also been a semi-professional football player and an author of a book called Infinity and Then Some More, which I thoroughly enjoyed reading. And I have to say, he's one of the hardest working people I know. So for me, it was a no-brainer to have him on the show. So Tejas Tiwari, brother, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot for that introduction, Siddhant. Means a lot coming from you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. So, please could you give us more insights into your professional background and personal life so our listeners can get to know you a little bit more?
Absolutely, Siddhant. So, just to set the context right, I am 24 and I have completed my CA and all three levels of CFA. And right now, I'm working as an analyst at a private equity fund called Access. So, at Access, basically a PE fund typically invests into PE companies, the smaller ones that general public cannot invest into. And then as the company grows, the investment fund gets out of it with a good return on its investment. So working at an investment fund is a pretty interesting experience. So I get to experience the whole deal cycle, right from sourcing those deals to investing in those companies, managing those companies for the next 3 4 years, and exiting them too. So it's a very fulfilling job to have, honestly. And
Nice.
the way I wanted to shape my career was, at least the way I want to shape it going forward, is to have some flexibility. And for that flexibility, I need to have a very good academic foundation. So that is what I'm working on. And that has led me to have some very interesting experiences and meet incredible people. So, so the way I look at it, building a career is not just about the technical skills you have, but it's also about the people you meet along the way. And
100%.
personally, I stay with my parents in Mumbai, and my brother is doing sports journalism from London. He's loving it so far. And so my dad was he retired as an additional vice president at Adani Electricity. And right
Nice.
now he teaches HR management to huge undergraduate students at a college. And my mom, she also retired as a senior manager from the same company. And right now she is following her passion to become an astrologer and an author.
Wow.
So again, very interesting set of people to be around. And the one thing that I've learned from my family, the people I'm closest to, is that you cannot really be complacent, or they'll never let me to rest on my achievements or dwell on my failures. So again, a very ambitious set of people to have around.
No, I love that. My mom is the same. She tells me, said you got to keep adding degrees to your name. Can't be satisfied with one thing. And your parents says it all. After retiring, they are doing something. I love that.
Absolutely.
And tell me about your journey on studying CA, CFA, because that's quite intense. And while you were managing a full-time job as well, right? So tell us about your
Yeah.
experience. How was that?
All right. So I'll start with CA and then we'll go on to CFA. So I started with CA when I was 18. So probably fresh out
So
of
right after
college,
12th, basically.
right
Yeah.
after 12th grade.
Yeah.
And so it started off very smoothly. The entrance exam was pretty easy. But at the age of 18, any day in my life in that particular year looked like 3 hours of undergraduate college, then another 7 hours of private coaching for CA, and then another 2 hours to top it off with, studying at home yourself. So 10, 12 hours of the day gone just like that, apart from your usual social life, your traveling, everything else. And that is 7 days a week for a year straight. And the implicit pressure here was that if I could not manage to clear the exam in the first go, I would not be able to get an internship, which is compulsory to finish CA. It's called an articleship, a 3 year internship with any of the big fours, because they always prefer someone who has cleared it in the first attempt. So that was a pressure that I put myself under. And thankfully, I got done in the first go right away. And I think after
Amazing.
2 months of my exam, I started working with Deloitte. So that was inter CA, and then the last level was the final CA. It was a whole new monster altogether. So that was another 3 years of working, going to undergraduate college, and also studying for CA on the weekends. And whatever social life I still did have left after that was completely killed by the pandemic. So that was a very tough experience, very frankly. But honestly, it's better to get used to that pressure sooner than later. So that was CA for you. And when it comes to CFA, so firstly, I did it because I loved finance. Right from the time I started studying it in CA, I knew I wanted to go deeper into this field. So CFA was everything finance that you can think of. And so the first level I did was right during CA, and the two levels after CA. So that was a journey in itself. So the first two levels were all right, but the third level was the toughest because I was also working full time at the current job that I have. So there have been days when I have been standing in the train and literally have a book in my hand while there's a crowd around me. So it's all that it takes to get done. That's what matters. So thankfully, I got done with that too in October last year, and
Hmm.
here we are having a conversation with you.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. And yeah, firstly, like we met like probably more than 6 years ago. We used to be, chilling in the classroom, and now you're on my
Yeah,
podcast.
I think
That's
it's
crazy.
eight years now. Been a while.
Probably, yeah. And you mentioned like it's important to put ourselves in situations that, which are outside our comfort zone or really put us on pressure. So why that's important to put in us in that situation, according to you?
So
How does it
again,
help us?
so most of us are very privileged to have that comfort zone to start with, but the comfort zone itself makes us not do things that we would have done otherwise. So something like studying for 12 hours straight and turning up to college or work or my coaching the next day, I wouldn't have done it if I was comfortable enough. You know, and that is what has made the difference so far, and I hope that is how it will continue to go on further.
Right. So it was like an engine that was pushing you forward to
Yeah,
keep at it.
absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that you were just in the train, crowded train, I believe, and you were studying. So
You
I
should try
think
out
that
the
also
Mumbai locals these days. It's way more
yeah.
crowded than you could have remembered.
I thought, damn, okay. And and I think it's also important to be obsessed with your work. Do you think that's right? Because I follow like Michael Jordan and all these guys,
Yeah,
and they say about you have to be obsessed with your craft. So I think you were quite obsessed with completing that because you were passionate about finance. So do you think that's important to achieve greatness in anything you do?
it is. It is, but it is also very overrated and oversimplified too. Because I'm sure even Michael Jordan didn't love basketball all days of his career, and he
Oh,
hated
he
it. I'm
did.
sure he would have hated it for probably 90% of the time. But the 10% of the time when it did matter to him, that is
Yeah.
what he still remembers. So, it's all right if you're not obsessed with it some days too. But again, it's the discipline that keeps you going. So, Michael Phelps, let me quote Michael Phelps here. After he won his record tally of gold medals at the London Olympics in 2012, he quoted that there were a lot of days, more days than not, wherein he did not have the courage to step into the water, forget swimming. But he simply made himself do that for those many years straight, and he is the most decorated Olympian now. So these are the things that you learn. These are the realistic things that you learn from the best there are around, and that is what
Love
I
it.
am trying to do too. I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere close, but that is the mindset I would want to have going ahead.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. Likewise. Likewise here. I want to ask you, like you said you were working like 12 hours a day non-stop. So did you have moments where you felt burnt out? But then how did you handle that?
Absolutely, there were quite a few, but see, firstly, you have to push that threshold. You cannot give in at the first instance of a burnout. But I used to relax with my family, step back. Again, it was the pandemic time, so you can't really go around a
Yeah.
lot. But I
Mm-hmm.
used to take a day off or a couple of days off just doing nothing.
I
Ideally a
love that. Yeah.
weekend where I was not even studying and no self help, no motivation, nothing at all. Just doing things that I would have done otherwise. I used to play PlayStation with my brother, read books that I wanted to read, play football quite a bit. So burnouts, okay, yeah, that was the way I dealt with burnouts back then, and I still do that from time to time
Good.
now.
I think that's important to take time off without feeling guilty.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's something I need to work on for sure. And I read one of your, I think, LinkedIn posts was it, and you mentioned 30% of 18 crores is equal to 6 months. So tell me about what was that post about?
Okay, so a disclaimer: I had failed in my CA final exam once, and the reason
Okay.
behind it is what I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
So it was a very simple, straightforward calculation that I had to do in on the day of the paper, which is, so you have profit, you have some tax that you pay out of it, and then you have profit after you pay that tax. So the profit was 18 crores, very briefly. The tax after that was 30%, and then you had to calculate the profit after tax, and the sum flowed from there. But
Yeah.
the problem was that a simple calculation as like that, 30% of 18 crores, that's a very simple calculation to do. I messed that up. And that cost me the entire 8 points that I was about to get on that sum. And I
Man.
ended up failing that group of subjects by 7 marks. So I had to retake uh, the whole group of subjects after 6 months. So that is what, my entire mistake can be summed up in those three parts of an equation. So 30% of 18 crores equals 6 months.
Oh, man.
But I realized later, that it wasn't just that sum that was my undoing. I was honestly very overconfident with the way I approached things. I had never faced an exam as tough as this, but I still expected or took it for granted that I will go through it without any issues. So I'm glad that I did go through what I went through. It was absolutely frustrating to see your result and making that mistake. And that mistake itself ends up costing you that much time.
Yeah.
So my mom had proposed this really interesting theory. She told me about it back then, which is called the fish skeleton theory. So obviously, if I'm not able to do something, there was a problem that I was not able to address right away. So a fish skeleton, if you look at its spine, that is the main problem that you have. So the spine of my problem was that I could not get through with those exams. And the smaller problems that stemmed out of that problem were some things like, not getting enough sleep, not practicing writing those papers enough, or overconfidence, like I mentioned. So once you address those smaller problems, the spine itself gets addressed. So that is the approach I took for the next 6 months, and I got done with my CA in the November 2022 set of exams.
Amazing, amazing, and love the
Yeah.
framework as well. And tell me about your mindset on, you took a comeback. It was a silly mistake, and you came back from it. So what mindset does it take for a comeback, according to
I
you?
can tell you 10 motivational videos that watched, or 20 books that I read, but none of it really counts. uh, So I cried quite a bit the day I got my exams because it was honestly unexpected. And
Yeah,
people around me whom I had studied with for 4 5 years, all of them had gotten done. So it was a double whammy
yeah,
altogether.
heartbreaking.
But I took the weekend off completely. Again, played a lot of football, came back home, cried the whole weekend. But on Monday, I knew I had to give in the next 100 120 days till the next set of exams. Just focusing on those exams, just those four papers, and how to get the most out of it. Again, smaller sacrifices. I did not change a lot of things. I started studying an hour before I went to work, couple of hours after I got back from work. For example, if a CA paper was 3 hours long, I practiced writing two papers for 6 hours on the weekends. So these smaller things are what made the difference. And I was completely focused in those 6 months. I stopped going out. Apart from working, I was still working at Deloitte back then.
Yeah,
So these smaller things are the ones that made the difference. So there's no real silver bullet here. You have to sit down with yourself, be honest that you messed up, and just take a go at it again. But it all starts from a place of honesty.
love that. Definitely, I agree. And what was your self-talk like? How do you talk to yourself when you made a silly mistake? Because sometimes when you make a silly mistake, you're like, oh, what do you do? Like you're dumb, etc. So how is your internal monologue? How do you talk to yourself when you make these
All
silly
of that, all
mistakes?
of that, all of that and more actually. But again, I make it a point to not go on that rant for a long time.
Yeah,
Probably a couple of hours at the most when I'm in that zone. And right away I try to look for a solution, because it is very counterproductive to keep going back to what you did wrong. But yeah, you should allow yourself those 2 3 hours to just be angry at yourself. That's all right. You did cost yourself something very important. To do that for a couple of hours, and but you have to get back to action right away.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's good, important to like forgive yourself and
Yeah,
keep.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Nice. And I want to know your time at Deloitte. You worked at one of the big four. So any quality or traits you saw in like leaders in high positions that set them apart that you can share with our listeners?
Absolutely. So I had the privilege to work at Deloitte for 3 years, and I've been at my current role at Access Private Equity for a year and a half now. And all this while, I've come across a great set of managers that I've worked with right away. Obviously, all of them have their own personalities, different tendencies, different outlooks, but there were a few things that I found were common amongst all of them. So, firstly, they are not at all scared to stretch their limits. It sounds pretty theoretical, but when you look at it from a day to day basis, they are not willing to go that extra step. And they will be the first one to take that extra step. So, by default, the people around you have to follow suit. So, that is one thing that I mean, I'm still trying to learn myself, because again, once you know an X set of things, you only want to do those X number of things. You don't want to do an X plus one or an X plus two yourself. um, and but again, these guys teach you that to get where they are, you need to do X plus 10. So that is what I'm trying to imbibe myself, and I'm getting there, hopefully, step by step. Secondly, the planning that they do is impeccable. So everything, if you have a big goal, you have 10 smaller goals to get to that big goal,
Yeah.
and the big goal takes care of itself right away. So the way they plan, there's someone who's accountable for that, and then there's someone who is supposed to do that within that frame of time. So it's not an indefinite goal, nor is it an unaccountable goal. So the planning that they do is impeccable, and of course the communication of that plan with the team around you, that is something that is very interesting to learn from these people. Thirdly, their attention to detail is impressive. You won't expect someone who is thinking of a much larger picture. I won't go into
Hmm.
specific examples here, but
Yeah.
these people are paid to have a strategic vision. That is where they make the most of their money. But at the same time, they are equally good at catching the fish's eye. So that is what, again, I personally struggle with attention to detail, and I'm trying to get over that too. But you realize that they are where they are for that reason. It is, I mean, they have not winged it right all the way to the top. And fourthly, and most importantly, is the honesty. So whenever someone around them needs a straight talk, they are not at all afraid to give that straight talk. And it is more likely than not that someone else would not be achieving the potential, or not be going through with what they're supposed to, and they are not at all scared, or they are not at all hesitant to get the best out of them, even if it makes them uncomfortable in that short span of time. So again, these four things are not the most easiest, it's not the most intuitive thing to do, rather. But over time, you have to culture that into yourself, and obviously that sets you on the path to greatness, if I may say that.
Yeah, that's quite inspiring and something that I'm going to take away from this episode. So thank you for sharing. And with all the, and so just to add on, I'm actually currently reading this book from Steve Jobs,
Okay.
and he's like one of those leaders as well, where he just talks turkey and just says how it is to anyone of his employees. If he doesn't like
Right,
the product they're proposing, he'll tell him this is how you
right,
need to
right,
do.
right.
This is what I think. The honesty side of things is quite important to work on for sure. And managing your CFA, CA, and a full time job, that means you have quite a strong work ethic. So tell us
Yeah.
about your work ethic and how does it really look like? I want to know how does it look like. So what I mean by that is you start your day at this time. You said you start 1 hour before, then you study after work 3 hours before. So I want to know more about how does your work ethic look like.
So honestly, it's been probably 4.5, 5 years since the time I've been working. It doesn't come naturally. It's not something that you would be good at right from day one. No one would be, and it's absolutely all right to make mistakes. So if you ask me how my day looks like, it looks like someone who's making a lot of mistakes, and I allow myself to do that. Just messing. I don't make those many mistakes, but I allow myself to make a few mistakes. And but the flip side of it is you have to constantly seek feedback. So it's all right if you're making those mistakes, but you have to seek feedback from the people. So again, there are two types of people with whom from whom you should take some feedback. One is someone who is around 3 to 5 years ahead of you in the career that you are into, or the course that you are doing, like 1 2 years ahead in the course that you're doing, or someone who spends at least 3 to 4 days with you in a week. So either of those two people would be more than willing, I'm sure, and able to give you a very strong feedback from time to time. So to develop a strong work ethic, I think you should allow yourself to make mistakes. It's absolutely all right, and seek feedback. And a day in my life, so it starts at around 10, and I try to, get into the thick of things by making a few calls. So I like to talk to people inherently, and so if I have to catch up with someone at work, or get something done, speak to someone for to set a meeting, I try to get that done in the first couple of hours, and then it's a routine work that takes a lot of time. So there is a set of to dos. That is something I'm working on. I maintain list, a written list, and then I try to tick it off across the day. So that has worked in my favor because I now don't forget a lot of things that I used to forget earlier. And also it gives you that gratification of ticking a list out of your item. It's very, yeah, it's very natural. And that again is something that I'm working on. And okay, work ethic is something that will keep evolving, right, till the last day
Yeah,
you work. So there's no end goal to it. But the only way you can measure it is if you're better at a few things than what you were at the same things last year.
amazing answer. And Tejas, and for example, you have a tough day at work, and you have to study for CFA after. So how do you really push yourself on days that are tough days? Let's say, how do you push yourself on those days?
Honestly, I don't. So if I have to study for an hour, usually, if I planned for an hour of study, I'll make it a point to study for at least 15 minutes and I'll give in. That's fine. But I try to not go too tough on myself either. But at the same time, not miss studying, for example, for 2 days back to back. If I missed it for one day, that's still fine, but not never for 2 days. So that is one thing that has worked for me, and it's more realistic too. So that is what keeps me going. The smaller things, if not an hour, 15 minutes, 10 minutes of just touching upon that subject, and you're in that momentum, and you can always pick up from there the next day.
Yeah, like one quote reminds, like done is better than perfect. So at least you do
Absolutely, done is
something
better than
before.
perfect. Absolutely,
Yeah, love that. Now I think
absolutely.
let's talk about your book that you have written,
Surely.
Infinity, and then some more. So tell me, what what inspired you to write this book, and what does the title mean?
Um, so honestly, there was no inspiration as such. I always used to like writing poems, even when I was in school. And across these 4 or 5 years, I had missed out on it quite a bit. There was a time after CA where I was on a break from working or anything, and I just happened to come across an Instagram post from this publisher that was inviting entries for publishing your own book, and it could be a book of poems. So I just thought, might as well go for it. If I am not too occupied, I should rather go for it. So
Yeah.
I spent the next month rather finishing up on the book, and I am pretty happy with the way it turned out. So infinity, the title itself, it's paradoxical. Infinity
Yeah.
is basically where things end theoretically, but you use your imagination and then you push it just a little bit more. So that is what I wanted to bring out from the title, that there's no real infinity as such. It always keeps growing as much as you want it to.
Love
uh,
that.
yeah, I mean, it's always easier to justify the title after you've written the title.
Yeah. And then
So
some
the
more.
book
Yeah.
So the book itself is it doesn't really restrict itself to a certain genre of poems. It has poems ranging from one on Vincent van Gogh to another one on a dying soldier. It has a poem which is from the point of view of a chestnut tree that was overlooking the author of India's national anthem. And it has a poem on Lionel Messi's World Cup win. So again, I want to keep the readers hooked. I want them to not know what they would get after a poem that they've read, and I would suggest them to read a poem and let it sit with you for a day, and you can always get back to the next poem the next day. So
Nice.
that was the thought that I had put into while writing the poem.
And can our listeners get the PDF copy of it?
Absolutely. I will share a link with you and you can
Yeah,
always post it
perfect.
with the
Yeah,
video.
the show notes.
You
I will.
can you can absolutely get an ebook for this one.
Perfect. And let's actually deep dive on into two poems, if you don't mind. So maybe we can start off with the your poem,
Yeah.
Night. That night in Doha, let's say.
That
What's
night
that
in
poem
Doha.
about? Yeah.
It's among my most, so that was one for myself. I am
Okay.
a huge Lionel Messi fan, and
Uh,
as the world knows, he won the World Cup in 2022 in December in Doha. But what a lot of people don't know was that he lost a World Cup final in Brazil in 2014. So I was a 14-year-old kid back then, and I remember watching that match. So it was late in the night in India. I finished watching that match at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was sick for the next 2 days because I was that sad about him not winning the World Cup. And he went on to lose a couple of more finals in the next 3 years itself, and abruptly retired from international football altogether. So it must have taken a lot of fortitude, um, swallowing his ego, and of course support to get back to international football, and look where that has gotten him. So he is someone who has risen from the ashes, literally someone who had absolutely left football to someone who has won everything there is to win for a football player. So it is an absolutely inspirational story, apart from all the personal biases. And that is what I wanted to bring out from that poem itself. So it was not only about that night in Doha, it was all these years that he had spent playing football, um, everything that football had given to him, and more importantly, everything that football had taken from him.
so inspiring. Thank you, Tejas. Nice one. So let's deep dive on another poem. So it's called Right to Positivity. What is that poem all about?
So, Right to Positivity is about the Wright brothers. I am an aviation geek, and I was always really inspired by the stories of the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur. So, just imagine what it would take for someone to think of flying people around when there were not enough people being driven around.
Yeah.
So, this takes place at a time in the US in 1902 where there are not even enough cars to go around, and you're thinking of flying people around. It must have taken something really fascinating to even think of it in the first place. So they took I think 2 to 3 years just testing their prototypes, not considering the time they spent on designing those prototypes. And in Kitty Hawk, they actually completed their for the first manned flight ever. So obviously poem is about the how disappointed they were when things did not work out, how things finally worked out, but also about having that simple vision that a lot of people might not even think of. They used
Yeah.
to work at a bicycle shop, and from there, they changed the course of humanity. So you go to an airport, a building essentially. You go to a metal can. You sit there for a few hours, and you are in a different city, thousands of miles away from where you were 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
Isn't that? I mean, it's not
Crazy.
nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah. For sure.
So that is
And
what was the driving factor behind writing this poem in the first place.
and the Wright brothers might, when they had the vision of decided, ris- they might have been ridiculed a lot from other people.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
so what's the
So
advice
his
on? Yeah, go on.
so
Sorry.
their father actually took them off the family business, the bicycle business, for a couple of years because he was not very happy with the way they were spending their time behind
Okay.
something that they would probably never achieve. So, yeah, it was a story of bravery.
Yeah, quite interesting. So, what's your advice on how can we build resilience towards the judgment of others? So, if you have an idea or something, you want to go ahead, but you're receiving a lot of judgment from everyone else. So, how can we really build resilience on that and just keep going after a vision?
So, this is way easier said than done because, again, you're around people all the time. Wherever you are, you will run into people at some point of time in your day. The way I look at it, I try to block all outside noise out. It's not an easy thing to do. Write down why I want to do what I want to do and keep reading that every day. Probably for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you go through that list. You will have 5 things that you want to do and 10 reasons for each of the 5 things that you want to do. The reasons are important, not the outcome. Why are you starting off with that thing is important. So that is how I do it myself. And I haven't taken any contrarian bets as far. So I'm not very experienced with people not supporting me.
Yeah.
But I would imagine someone like an Elon Musk who wants to take humanity to Mars. He would be a better person to answer this question, I'm sure.
Yeah, Elon Musk is a crazy guy for sure. And how he
I
like,
mean, again, it is the Wright brothers all together. Again, we
yeah,
they
true,
must have gone through the same criticism that Elon Musk is going through right now. And for all you
100%,
know, in the next 30 years, we will have a man on Mars.
1000%, couldn't agree more. And and talk about poems, you also share a few things on your LinkedIn post. I really enjoy reading. I think one of the poems or something you wrote was about something the pere eagle, pere eagle.
Right.
What is that about?
Absolutely. So I read this story or an anecdote really from in this book called You Can Win by Shiv Khera. And it's a motivational book. I read it when I was way younger, 9 or 10 years old. But this story stuck with me. So it's a story about an eagle when it was in its egg. It accidentally falls onto a prairie chicken farm and it grows up as a prairie chicken and it lives all its life as like a chicken. So it never flies high. It never really goes for the hunt, goes for the kill, never does that. And one day he just looks up and sees a huge bird flying way higher than what he has seen around him. So he just asks the prairie chicken next to him. And the chicken replies that that's an eagle. You cannot even think of flying that high. Might as well get on to lunch right now. So, it was because what's interesting is that eagles are they have evolved in a manner which allows them to fly that high and hunt. So they have strong talents that let them grab their prey from wherever they want to. They have that vision to spot the prey in the first place. And their wings are shaped in a manner which helps them glide to higher heights instead of actually flying all the way. So these are things that they are naturally born with. But the eagle that landed on the prairie chicken farm, it could never even figure out that it was blessed with all of those things already. And what was worse, that it was surrounded by people who could not even see that it was an eagle and not a chicken to start with. So that is what caught my eye back then, and I still fondly remember that story. And so you need to not just know your own capabilities intuitively. You need to sit down with yourself, figure out things that you're good at, things you're bad at, and go on from there. So it's not just that, but you also need to be around people who can spot that for you and
Yeah,
help you go where you want to. So that is
me.
something that I thought I wanted to share from that LinkedIn post.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's important to have people around you that motivate you to go up as well if they see the potential for sure. And eagles also need to break their beak to really
Absolutely,
transform
that's a very
themselves. So
painful process.
yeah, tell me about that as well.
So I think around three fourth of their lives, their wings become very heavy, their beak becomes curved, their talons are not strong enough, so they cannot kill anymore. And if you're in a pack of eagles, if you cannot provide for the pack, you're no good to them. So they actually go to a secluded place, probably on top of a mountain or something, and then they pluck their feathers off which have become heavy. Then they break their beak off by banging their head against a rock and also their talons. So you can imagine it's a very painful process, a physically painful process. But later, after some time, their beak grows back, which is much straighter. Their
Yeah.
talons are back, so they can claw the prey much easier now. And they have newer feathers, which are way lighter, which helps them fly for longer hours. So it's an absolute metamorphosis that they go through in order to survive.
Yeah.
Forget growing, forget anything of this sort. Just to survive, this is something that they have to go to. And that is what we as humans also have to go through sometimes. And it's absolutely all right. You should learn from nature as much as you can.
Yeah, I think I truly believe, for example, leaders who might be leading in particular in one way all their life, they might need to transform it to get to the next stage. So basically what I'm saying is what got you here cannot get you there. So you have to like transform
Absolutely.
yourself to keep moving forward for sure.
I think there's a story about the CEO of Lego too.
Was that sea of
He CEO
who?
of Lego.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember the name of it. Yeah, I think
Okay,
it's a
right.
very interesting book. It's been a while since I read it, but it's how they were facing quite a few problems back in 2003 or 2004, and how he had to reinvent his complete lineup to get to where they are right now. So it's a very interesting read. I would suggest you to go through that once.
I'll add it to my list if you're saying.
Absolutely.
And you're also a semi-professional football player. So you're big into football, like you said about your Messi example. So tell us
Yeah.
about how did you get into firstly a semi-professional football player? How do you get into that?
So I started playing football when I was 7 or 8 years old in my community, and I used to play on those concrete tiles. There were no courts
Yeah.
back then, at least around where I used to stay. So I used to you fall off quite a few times in football, and every time you fall on a concrete tile, you end up bruising yourself. There's nothing in between. But I used to love playing football, and I noticed that I did not really remember what was happening apart from that football field for those couple of hours, and that stayed with me. I played football through my exams. I still do, and that time of my life when I did have some leeway to pick out things that I was really interested in, like writing a book. I went for a trial at a semi-professional club in Mumbai, and I gave the selection that I had to. And thankfully, I got selected for that season, and I played a couple of seasons after that. And it was one thing of the bucket list for sure. I still do, but I don't have the time to commit to something of that
Yeah,
level.
for sure. And being a professional athlete, how has it takes a different mindset to be a professional. So how has that mindset really shaped you and helped you in other areas of your life?
Oh, absolutely. So you get used to losing and coming back way easier playing sports than anything else.
For sure.
You get injured, you lose those games. It's probability you lose 50% of the time. Then you have those fights, arguments with people around you. But the next day, you're still wearing your shoes at the same place, playing the same sport. So, you learn to shrug off losses way easier. So, like I said, the weekend I failed my exam, I was playing football the next day. So that just helped me reset, even if it was 1%, it helped me reset and, get back to what I was supposed to do. And a very underrated thing about playing sports is that you meet a lot of incredible people. So
For sure.
that has been a source of meeting new people for me. And you can actually network way better than what you would at a traditional meetup. So you have an icebreaker in place already. You just have to follow up and build up on that later. So that is a very underrated takeaway that I have from playing sports all this while. But even if you're bad at sport, pick out any sport, be it chess, tennis, or football, and just keep playing it for a while. It will give back a lot more than you can imagine.
Right. So any athlete you look up to besides Messi for inspiration?
I was about to say Messi.
Okay, that
I actually look up to Muhammad Ali quite a bit. Again, I have seen his fights. I'm not really into boxing, but the way he moved in that ring, it wasn't about boxing. So he had said that he hated every minute of training. but he said to himself that, just
Keep
suffer
pushing.
now and live
Yeah.
the rest of your life as a champion. So I actually have that clip out on my study table too,
Even I
and
have
that
that
kept me
in a
going.
poster,
Perfect,
in my room.
perfect, perfect. And subconsciously it keeps you going. The thing is that you have to be able to go through the bad days. Going through the good days is very easy. So when you're going through those bad days, you need something of external, some source of external inspiration to push you through that and get to the good ones sooner.
Amazing. What an inspirational man you are, Tejas, bro.
Not at all, getting there hopefully.
So, last question before we wrap up. So, with
Yeah,
all the things you do, you've written your book, CA, CFA, semi professional uh, football player. So, with all the things you do,
bigger things to come, bigger things to come.
for sure, bro, this is you're
Yeah,
just warming up.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so with all the things you do, what drives you to do what you do?
So the way I've been brought up, honestly, is that uh, if you're not winning at what you're doing, it doesn't matter even if you're doing your best. So you can put in all your efforts, and it still won't count for much if you're not winning. So it didn't come. I didn't understand that concept intuitively, but over time, I realized how important winning itself was. And once you get a taste of blood, that first win, however big or small it is, for me, it was winning those school athletic races. Because I was not an inherently athletic kid. I used to run up quite a bit for those races, and winning those races actually made me believe that I could do something that I wasn't built to do. So
Hmm.
that kept me going. So the smaller wins that you have every day, they are the ones that drive you. That is what is the case with me, and I'm really thankful to my parents to inculcate that into me from a very young age. Just they won't let me win at games easily. It was always an effort to earn a win with them, and that is what made sure that I wasn't complacent. I wasn't fine with not winning even if I'm putting in my best efforts. At the end of the day, it doesn't really count for much if you're not winning. So, and you also fail, so don't get me wrong here. It's not about not failing at all. But when you look back, you will only remember the wins, honestly. The failures build you, but you will end up remembering the wins. So Michael Jordan himself, he is known for the points he scored, but he is not known for the
Yeah,
misses he made. There are quite a few NBA seasons where he is the one who has missed the most number of free throws. But again, you have to dig really deep to find that fact out. But his
yeah.
world records spring up very easily. So again, get used to winning, however big or small it is. And once you get used to it, you're addicted to it. So that is what keeps me going. So again, a small win, CFA, any level of CFA, CA, or a small win at work, it builds on. It keeps me going, and I'm sure it will lead on to bigger things in life.
What does winning mean to you?
Everything.
I love that. And you know what?
if you
Kobe Bryant said
if
the
you're
same
not
thing.
winning, if you're not winning, you're not doing it. Seriously, I had
Kobe
no
Bryant said the
idea.
same thing. He said winning. Yeah, tell me. Sorry,
Oh,
go on. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, everything you do is supposed to take you closer to a win. That's it.
Amazing.
Well,
Uh,
explicitly, you can take your time off. You can do everything that's possible, but it should be in context of winning a longer race. So it's fine. I mean, again, if you're planning to work for the next 40 years, it's fine to take a year off. I'm not against that, but it should be in some tandem with your longer term goals. So everything starts from having envisioned a win, and then you back calculate from there. So that is the way I look at it. And again, winning is what matters at the end.
Amazing. And that tells a lot about your mindset as well as an individual. So
Thanks.
that's amazing. And honestly, Tejas, it's been an honor to have you on the show, brother. And I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Pleasure is mine.
And I think I know you more and as a person as well now. So I think that's amazing. So for our listeners, I will link Tejas's LinkedIn, social media handles, and definitely his link of his book PDF, so you can check it out. And for our listeners, make sure you follow the show and make sure you comment below. What's your key takeaway from this episode? And if you leave us a review, it will help me get more interesting guests like Tejas on the show. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Tejas, as well, for joining again. Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure is all mine, Siddhant. Thanks a lot for having
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.